right, let's look at a few news stories. So I just saw this on Paul's Security Weekly. I didn't know this. American big rigs have to have an electronic identification module, which has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and apparently it reads your Wi-Fi to somehow identify your truck or something, and that you're required to have this thing, and it's insecure. They have found a way to make a...
Electronic locking system.
What's that?
It's an electronic locking system.
Electronic locking? Is it? Logging, yeah, keep track of something. But apparently it's vulnerable, and they were able to make malware that will hop from truck to truck. So that's interesting. The factory default firmware settings expose an API that permits over-the-air updates, and they're able to, I think, intercept those updates and modify them and put in malicious software through them. So anyway, that's an interesting flaw. I never heard of one like that before. I was
required to have that locking system by law.
Yes, apparently so. All right. And so there are phones and routers are getting infected and put into a proxy service. I've seen various reports about this going by. At first, it was older routers from, I think, Linksys. Now it's a whole lot of routers getting infected. And I say most of them are because people are continuing to use routers that are at their end of life. So they no longer get security updates, so they're just using known vulnerabilities to take over your router. And this is something I've been seeing a lot of articles about ever since shadow brokers, which is the Russians, leaked out the NSA's router attacks. There have been more and more router attacks. So there is quite a bit of ways of getting malware on your router, and this is the way Volt Typhoon is getting into networks, the Chinese hacking group. I think they're coming in through your routers. So we really need some kind of router security, and right now there really isn't much of anything you can do to detect malware on your router or to clean it off, really. You can restore it back to factory defaults, but sometimes that's not even good enough, and that's what happened recently with VPN appliances. I don't think it was Ubiquiti. I forget the name of the brand, but they found out even when you restored it to factory defaults, the previously stolen authentication tokens continued to work. So, and then the manufacturer put out, it was in, I can't remember the name of the company, manufacturer put out a detect tool to see if you'd been hacked, and the detect tool didn't work, so you'd still be hacked. So the CISA recommended just throwing them away. Let me just find that to make sure I'm not slandering anybody. It'll be a CISA alert, and recently. It was actually these devices that got hit at the CISA itself, so this will tell me. The CISA got hacked, and it was Ivanti. The Ivanti Policy Secure Gateways. These are the devices that are being used by many government agencies, and they have serious vulnerabilities, and after they hack them, even resetting it to factory defaults does not eject them, and even using the official tool from the company to detect when it's hacked and restore it does not get rid of them, where CISA recommended people should just throw away those devices and quit using them, which is pretty extreme. All right, let me check for comments in the chat. There are none, okay. So apparently phones are also getting infected, and I'm not sure I understand how the phones are getting infected. I would assume they must be Android phones. Let's see. They're not. The word phone only appears once, so that's disturbing. I understood the part about routers. Apps available in Google Play. Okay, same old thing. There's malicious apps in Google Play, which when you install enrolls your device in a residential proxy network, so people can hide traffic by using your bandwidth. All right. Yeah, that's not terribly new. So this is an industrial attack system attack. There is a Chinese software package, I think it's Chinese. Yeah, China-owned firm, makes something called Squizzer Framework. And this is some kind of software that's used in industrial equipment. And they've found a poisoned piece of software in the repository for it. So They found this thing takes screenshots every minute and uploads them to a command and control server. And they found so apparently just stealing screenshots of your industrial control devices, they're hoping to find secrets or something. And they use various simple obfuscation techniques. Like here is the IP address they're connecting to, and instead of typing it in, they put it in a byte array with 1 byte per ASCII character. So this is just a simple way to make it less obvious what they're doing, but it clearly shows that it's malicious because no legitimate software would do it that way. Anyway, the German government has published a law guaranteeing your right to encryption, saying everything should have end-to-end encryption in it. This is pretty surprising. All the other governments, like the U.S. government and I know the United Arab Emirates and I think Russia, are trying to ban encryption, so the government can end everything. But the German government has decided, they got a draft bill, it hasn't passed yet, that would make end-to-end encryption mandatory for messengers and cloud services in the future, which is a very enlightened attitude to take. We'll see if that passes. What usually happens every time you try to do this in America is people say, well, you're protecting pedophiles and terrorists. Now people can be putting up like illegal pornography and you can't detect it because of the encryption. So that's usually what the other side presses on here. I don't know if that'll happen in Germany or not. I know the big motion in this direction has been the opposite direction. For the last couple of years, the government is trying to force Apple to install software on your phone that will scan your photographs to see if they're illegal and report that back. And they have resisted that pressure so far. But that's certainly the main pressure that I hear of in America, is law enforcement wants to scan your stuff. So the question came up on Policy Security Weekly. We talked about, because Google has published quantum secure computing threat modeling, when they say they're afraid that within 10 years, quantum computers will be able to crack the current public key encryption. So they're recommending that you encrypt it with the current public key encryption schemes like elliptic curve cryptography and RSA, and then again a second time with quantum safe encryption like Kyber, so that if either one of those remains unbroken, your data will be safe. But this brought up the issue, and we talked about how quantum computers are going to break the current public key systems. They are not going to break private key encryption. You just have to double the length of the key. So you move from AES 128 to AES 256, and quantum computers will not be able to crack it. And the question came up, can quantum computers crack hashes? And I'd never heard of anybody doing it, but there is a paper from a few months ago where this guy did show that quantum computers should do some damage. They should be able to crack hash functions somewhat faster than classical computers. It's not enough that it's going to make them useless, apparently, if this is as far as it goes, but it does raise an interesting issue. Quantum computers may harm our hash functions. We may eventually have to move to quantum safe hash functions or something, but that's all new. And I'd never thought about that before. This is something else that came up. Apparently, old vinyl records have software on them, along with the music. He found it on a bunch of them. And that's pretty surprising. I know when I started doing computing in like 1980 in home computing, you would store things on a cassette tape. And it was actually communicating through the audio file, so audio port. So in principle, you could use a vinyl record, I suppose, to store or retrieve software, although I'm not aware of anybody that did it. But apparently there is software on a bunch of vinyl records, and he's been tracking it down and finding it. So that's kind of a screwy thing to do. That's what it does. All right. And now let's see if there's any way to get past this. It was climate change. Oh, yeah, leap second. The poles, the ice caps are melting. This is moving the water from being solid at the pole to being water flowing around, and that is changing the rotation of the Earth. So we have to have leap seconds. There's been something like 25 leap seconds required, as the Earth's rotation is not uniform. It speeds up and slows down due to motions inside the Earth and motions on the surface. And so they correct that by adding a leap second every now and then, and now they're going to have subtract a leap second at the end of this year, because I think that means the Earth's rotation is speeding up. But anyway, they'll have to subtract a second at midnight on December 31st. So it's interesting insofar as it shows, in case anybody still has any doubts, an enormous effect that we're having on the climate. And now we're changing the length of the day in addition to many other things. And a student asked about this, so I looked. I wasn't aware of it. They are going to have another Hope Conference in New York City. This is a DEF CON-like conference. They only have it every 2 or 3 years, and happens in New York City, so it's mainly for the East Coast people. I also, when I go there, it is much more artistic than DEF CON. There's a lot of, but anyway, and they have a lot more politics and a lot more art and hobby stuff, not as much technical computer stuff, although it's there. Anyway, I won't be there. I'm not in the mood to travel to the East Coast this time, although I'll be at DEF CON, I imagine. Anyway, it's a place you might want to go if you're on the East Coast. You want to go to a hacker convention. So I'm going to stop this news.